I did have a suggestion that Angela Rayner, do you remember Cheryl Cole had that?
What's the connection?
Well, there is a connection.
Right.
Cheryl Cole
Yeah.
had a single where she dressed as M. Bison from Street Fighter 2.
Oh, did she? Oh,
Yeah,
right.
she had like a full military hat, dictator hat, and it was M. Bison chic.
Okay.
And I thought that as part of the new kind of based labour containment arc, that Angela Rayner could bring back the M. Bison chic, could get that outfit from Cheryl Cole and be like, make a real statement.
Funny you mentioned that. Just while you were getting your coffee and stuff, was it Politics UK? One of those things popped up on Twitter, and it was Angela Rayner was apparently making the rounds that she would make a credible left-wing alternative to Keir Starmer. Feels like she's on manoeuvres.
Well, interesting
Right.
that I noted that she had a live event around December, it was around Christmas time, with a certain Dark Lord,
Yeah.
Tony Blair, and I thought, that's unusual. Tony
Right.
doesn't really seem like the sort of guy who'd get on with Angela. And then it transpired that Tony Blair had personally talked Angela Rayner out of resigning because she was going to resign over the pushback she was getting on building the houses. She was like, it's impossible to get done. I'm going to resign. And Blair personally intervened and got her to stay. Now, again, this is a bit of theory crafting by me.
Yes.
But if I were to read between the lines, if you read the Star Wars EU, the expanded universe, Palpatine, even though there's the rule of two, he never only had one apprentice on the go. He always had backups. So as well as Vader, there was like people he was keeping in the shadows. And I wonder if Rayner is a backup in case Starmer is non-rehabilitable. Starmer's pretty hated, or he was pretty hated up until he started being based. Yes. I've had this theory that Rayner, and I know it sounds crazy, that she could be sold to the British public. Okay, yes, she's thick as mince. Yeah, she's a bit rough, right? But do you remember when she went to Ibiza?
Yes. She was dancing to Alphalanda Rouse or something.
Yeah, well, I can't remember if she was dancing to, but
yes,
the public enjoyed that.
Yes.
It didn't, like, the Tories were trying to make hay with it, look at this disgrace and so on. Actually, people thought it was relatable. And I think she's got a human touch that Starmer lacks. And it could be a plan B in case the establishment of the Starmer Reich fails.
Because Starmer, it isn't going brilliantly for Starmer. I just had to make a video yesterday where, to put it, I was trying to say something very, very carefully without saying it, to do with all these young male models who seem to know where he was living a few years ago, and for whatever reason have a particular issue with him. So, and that just feels to me like that's something. This episode is probably going to go out in a couple of weeks' time because I have the temerity to go on holiday. But I feel that's blowing up. Plus the fact that literally everybody hates him.
Well, I mean, that could be used as a pretext. Like I said before, any prime minister, anytime they want, they can pull the trigger and use some pretext to get rid of them. I would push back a bit though, Dan. I remember last year before the election, or the day after the election, I said, look, in a year's time, you can hold me to this. Labour would have reduced legal immigration.
400,000.
Figures came out today. They would have reduced illegal immigration, which I think they have done by about 12%, and they are going to fix the potholes. Okay? They're starting. And I said, if they could do those three things, Labour should do enough, basically, to stay in power, come what may, right? Don't forget, they've got 5 years. Now, I put that out, and within a couple of weeks, Southport happened. And a lot of people were like, hey, you've gone mad, you've lost your touch. Your Midas touch has gone. What's happened? And I was like, look, just wait. They'll find a way. And, of course, there was a lot of shenanigans within the Labour Party. There was that Minister Sue Gray, do you remember?
Oh, yes.
oh, well, she wasn't a minister, she was an advisor. And she was basically gatekeeping Downing Street and keeping people from seeing Starmer.
But she wasn't the Dark Lord's creature, was she?
While she was against Blair. And do you remember there was that period where they kept on snubbing Blair? They told him, no, we're not doing your AI thing.
Digital IDs.
We're not doing
happening.
digital ID. They told him to do one. There was all these headlines saying, why is Starmer not returning Blair's texts? And why is he ignoring the advice of Tony? And so on and so forth. She was ousted in November last year. And around that time, there was a bit of a signal shift from Starmer. If you remember all of the really unpopular stuff, Southport, the farmers,
Yes.
the winter fuel allowance stuff, all of that stuff happened early. And since since that meeting with Blair and Rayner, I think he's been back in the picture. Blair has. And not only that, he has got his men, Blairites, within the Labour cabinet surrounding Starmer at all levels, basically, including Peter Mandelson, who is now the ambassador to the US. Right. There's a guy called McFadden who's in there. He's an arch Blairite. And the other thing that Blair did around January, February time is he had a meeting with 40 he had private meetings with backbench Labour MPs at their homes, private meetings. It was reported in the media as Blair keeping an eye on future stars.
Didn't I just see something about 40 Labour MPs did something very recent?
And then recently 40 MPs wrote a letter about the net zero and Ed Miliband. So
Right.
it is obvious, right, that within Labour there is a tension between the Blairite faction and let's just call them leftists. Okay.
Well, isn't Angela Rayner a leftist?
Well, Rayner's interesting. Rayner is interesting because she is, people will correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe the deputy leader of Labour is the only position not selected by the Prime Minister.
Indeed.
She is selected by the trade unions. Now, the fact that Blair is personally intervening and cultivating this relationship with Rayner shows to me that he has spotted a little node of possible, a little node that may escape his control. So if they can get Rayner onto the Blairite side, it basically means she represents the unions. And then, so it means that the unions are not going to be a threat to the Blair faction. And this is important because a lot of the stuff that the Blairites want to do and that Starmer wants to do is going to be pretty unpopular with the unions. There's going to be showdowns.
What are the keynote things you're thinking here? I mean, is it the fact that the sums just don't add up and they want to cut?
Well, I mean, they want to shrink the administrative state. They want to privatise. They want to outsource stuff. They want to bring in. They want to do these public-private partnerships all over the economy. They want to bring in AI, which is going to lose a shit ton of jobs. All of these things are basically described by the Tony Blair Institute. These are all things that have been announced as plans. It's not going to be easy. And I mean, the basic idea, I think, is that Starmer is in there to do a job and to be able to face down all of those elements in Labour or on the left that are going to kick up a fuss. You know, if it was a Tory Prime Minister, there'd probably be riots on the street, because as a Labour Prime Minister, it's going to be harder because the left have got nowhere to go. So this is what I think is happening. And what's happening at the minute is that Blair has got control. He didn't have control at the start. He has gained control from around December, January time. And now he's consolidating. And, I mean, do you remember in Order 66 where Vader's hunting down the Jedi?
Yes.
I mean, there are still holdouts. Miliband is one. And there's a few other voices. Like there was a Labour MP who went to see Starmer about his Island of Strangers speech and said he should apologise. Now, really, that should be a signal they have to get rid of. They have to. That one escaped the purge, if that makes any sense. So
Yes.
this is what I think is happening, and it's happening because Labour want to maintain power and they want to keep reform out. They want to keep
Right.
populism down.
And they maybe thought that would be easier than it was when they first came into power, but now they understand they need to go to the master who truly understands power.
Yeah, I think when they first got in, Starmer was like, "Look, I don't want to be under Blair's shadow. I've got my own ideas about things. Some of them are left wing, by the way, and I want to try to go it alone." And he had Sue Gray there telling him, "Look, we're going to try out all these things." And I think what's happened basically is that with Southport and with the farmer protests and the fuel allowance and the 16% approval rating they had at one point, which is astonishingly bad for a new prime minister, and more recently the council elections where Reform won 600 seats plus, 600 councillor seats. With all of those things, they're saying, right, the Blairites will be saying, look, you're not listening to us and it's going wrong. You're not listening to us and it's going wrong. The more you listen to these leftists, the more it goes wrong. And every single time it happens, they gain more power within the party. And also they gain power to say the base things and do the base stuff.
And what's the source of his power? Because on one hand, I can't help but think that if you're actually in government, you are always constrained by your limited bandwidth, just responding to things. And Blair has an enormous organisation of people who just sit and plan.
Yes.
And somebody needs to do that. It doesn't take place in government. You can't trust the civil service to do it. And therefore, really, the only people who can do it is Tony Blair. So that means you can either accept the wisdom and agenda of Tony Blair and look, you get all these roadmaps, detailed, sophisticated roadmaps laid out for you.
Plans, yeah.
Or you do your own thing and then you lose.
Exactly. And the thing is, it's not just... Tony Blair Institute is now the biggest by a mile in terms of employees and the size of
the biggest think tank in the world, or
yeah, I mean it's certainly the biggest one in Britain.
Yeah.
He employs more people in the government than Downing Street does. As an example, he has more direct staff. I think it's like over 1,000 or something ridiculous.
Yes.
There will be other think tanks and other people writing these white papers, coming up with these plans, but of course there's a competition there. And what Blair is very good at doing, one, because he's Tony Blair, but two, because that network he's built has got so many influential people and powerful people in it. They get their plan there first. They get their plan, in fact, ahead of the, I always remember a conference that Blair put on that went on 2 weeks or 3 weeks before Davos. And it was remarkable to watch it because it was like, we're going to set the agenda at Davos. What should it be? What should the world leaders be thinking? We're going to dictate that now. Then in 3 weeks' time, this is what we're going to be taking to Davos. And I just thought it was very interesting that they do the agenda setting before, like it's like a one stage prior to all of these ones that people would have heard of, like Davos. And they do the same thing with the government. They they print their plans and, say what the agenda is. And then within 6 months, now it's the government policy. It's happened with digital ID. It happened with, it's happening with AI at the moment. It happened with COVID.
Yes. But this is a remarkable amount of power for one man to wield. It feels like we on our side are at a significant disadvantage for not having it, or an equivalent to this. But then on the other hand, we have got the hive mind of basically the whole energy of the internet. So our side is very chaotic, lots and lots of nodes.
Yes.
But I'm not sure which of those two is necessarily more powerful.
Well, I honestly think that our best bet is to work almost in symbiosis and with the unawareness of the structure. So if you think at the moment, Blair and friends, even though everything they're doing is to maintain their power, for pure Machiavellian reasons. Even if in their heart of hearts they don't care about immigration, etc., they're still saying and doing stuff about it. So I think that we, on our side of things, need to get into a mindset where we don't really care about who or why or how they're going about these things. What we care about is that they are happening. Right? I.e.,
Yes.
right now today, that net immigration number came down by half. And we've got into a stage where you've got the left, you've got Labour crowing about a massive reduction in immigration as if it's a good thing.
Very interesting.
Right? Now, we don't need to control anything because the tempo of the discourse has already been set.
I like that, because that is levelling up politics, because the naive way that most people never get out of their entire life is, I'm going to support a team, like a football club or a political party, and I'm going to bet everything on them winning the trophy. And then once I win the trophy, all my problems will be solved. Whereas in reality, well, okay, maybe sometimes you win the trophy, but once you have won the trophy, nothing interesting ever happens. You get disappointed all of the time.
Mm-hmm.
Perhaps it is a more sophisticated levelling up to say, well, actually, no, we don't control the government. The elites control the government. What we have to do is we have to influence the incentive structure of the elites. Then circle back into government to us, and we will just move ourselves ahead in the cycle.
Look at Keir Starmer now. Every tweet he's made since the Island of Strangers speech has been signalling to us.
Yes.
Right, whether he's thinking about it or not, that is what is happening. He is signalling to us.
But because we have the eyeballs.
Well, not only do we have the eyeballs, setting the tempo of the discourse. Because the world has changed.
If you would like to see the full version of this premium video, please head over to lotuseaters.com and subscribe to gain full access to all of our premium content.